thank you all for making the time here. It is an honor for me to be here because same thing that she said I would be able to repeat for Debashish and Sucheta. Both extraordinary people with integrity and commitment, which is so rare in today's times. And this is something that is the hallmark of old style journalists, I would say. People who are not, quote unquote, spoilt by the system. People who fight and persist for change. It has been an honor to be associated with both of them. And I remember once I heard, when I used to be sharing a cabin next to hers, and I heard some slightly angry voices. And I wanted to I didn't want to intrude, but I heard this and I thought they were some CBI goons,
CBI goons.
Trying to plant something in her account or whatever. So of course then I discovered my Mawali Roop from the streets, and then we are able to take care of such things because we are devotees of Tukaram, who says Mau Mena Huni Amhi Vishnu Das Kathina Vajrasi Bhedu Aise. So for those people who follow rules, people who are devoted to the true path, we are softer than wax. But for those who think that they can slip one or two over us, we are harder than Indra's Vajra. So that is the beautiful message that I have picked up from these two very extraordinary people, which is walk softly and carry a very big stick. So with that introduction and with a big thank you for all of you here, I want to start this little conversation of ours. We've been witnessing an alarming rise of obesity in our part of the world. Earlier, many years ago, when I went to work in the US as an Alfred Friendly Press Fellow, I noticed this there. And I believed that it was a problem peculiar to that society, that it wasn't our problem. But today, when I look around, I feel it is no longer a Videshi problem. It is a Desi problem as well, ours as well as theirs. This is compounded by these extremely alarming trends towards decreased physical activity, dominance of what you could call a coach potatoes kind of life, and of course the jump in the incidence of lifestyle diseases seems entirely predictable. But a more important question for which we are gathered, and that deals with the key phrase, transforming your health. Can we halt this trend? Can it be halted? Can it be reversed? Now there are those people who believe that the mess that our bodies have gotten into is due to our genes. We feel, they say that, our problems stem from our Stone Age physiologies. What they argue is nature did not adapt our bodies rapidly enough to handle the problems of plenty that we are caught up in today. As an antidote, they offer what is called as the paleo diet. Have you heard about this, the paleo diet? Actually, it is supposed to be unleashing the inner caveman in you. Because they say that, you should eat like the Paleolithic civilization people did. And what is that kind of food? Which was probably eaten 2.5 million years ago. And critically, what the paleo diet enthusiasts tell you is that don't eat foods that have come from the farming revolution that changed our human societies. So farming came up around 10,000 years ago. So legumes and grains are out by a very strict paleo diet. And what they will tell you is eat meat, lean meat, lots of it. But the moot question is, just how valid or tenable is such an assumption? You know, a Mayo Clinic study put it more diplomatically. Concerns and questions about the paleo diet include both food selection and the underlying hypothesis. So, what if the Paleolithic diet wasn't all meat and marrow? So now I'm getting to a more nuanced view of the paleo diet. They say forget the caveman. Studies of modern hunter-gatherers have shown that less than 30% of their annual calories came from animals. What was more revealing, more than half the times these macho men went out on a hunt, they failed to get any meat. So it would be wrong to be obsessed with man the hunter sort of hypothesis. This might sort of blind us to the role that women have played in the survival of their communities. Almost 70% of the calories of these societies, hunter-gatherer societies, have been shown to have come from plants and fruits and berries and tubers foraged by women and children. Women seem to have enjoyed a powerful position in those days. And experts such as Maria Gimbutas talk about a matriarchy of those times. That slide, for a technical reason, is not in this, but it shows a very well-fed goddess seated on a throne with a lion throne, somewhat like the Sherawali of India. And it is this, their hypothesis is this goddess was the guardian of nutrition, somewhat like Annapurna of ours. So let's move from that 70% plant calories to something simpler. Seven words that the well-known popular food enthusiast Michael Pollan claims to capture everything he's learned about food and health from these 7 words. What he says is, eat food. This is the one? Eat food, not too much, mostly plants. This is his message. Eat food, not too much, mostly plants. What he says by food, I mean real food, not edible food-like substances. And more humorously, he says, don't eat anything your great-grandmother wouldn't recognize as food. Stay out of the middle of the supermarket. Shop on the perimeter of the store. Real food tends to be on the outer edges of the store near the loading docks. You know, where the fresh food can be loaded when the shelf food goes bad. So he gives you a very important message. Don't eat anything that won't eventually rot. It's a very curious thing to say, that you should eat food which embraces change. Don't look for this eternal Twinkie bar, you know, which will not age, which once made is forever, till some astronaut finds it and eats it and is very happy. He says, eat food that goes bad, that has an expiry date on it, inbuilt into it. So, in a way, this is talking about change being the constant. Change being the constant is actually an accurate reflection of our physiologies, because constantly our body is changing, our body is consuming glucose, you know, subsisting, our brains are subsisting on all this which is drawn from fruit. Now there are some food enthusiasts who have taken exception to Pollan's bestseller, which he called Omnivore's Dilemma. Human beings are not omnivores, they argue. I'll dilate on that a little later. And our food choices are not a dilemma, says one critic. Far from being a dilemma, she adds, our question of what to eat lends itself to a win-win-win situation, which is also the subject of our encounter today. At this point, let me say that there isn't one single ideal human diet. The hallmark of being human may be our ability to adapt to many habitats and our ability to thrive in all of them by being able to combine many different foods to create many different health options. So this is one of the things that I want to emphasize in our interaction, that let us not be dogmatic or prescriptive or restrictive. We should be open-ended enough, but doesn't mean that you are open-ended enough for foolishness. That it is possible to sort of mix and match your options to make sure that you are able to eat well. Now, I want to get into another intriguing aspect which comes from this one, magic of fire. This was something that struck me when I used to do a little column called Cosmic Uplink for the Economic Times, where we used to make bridges between science and spirituality. And one day we met Madam Jain, who happens to be the head of the Times Foundation, and she says, is there something we could talk about ancient rituals? So I said, she asked me what was the kind of take that modern science would offer on this. Now, what can you talk about fire as something that is transformative? Again, to go back to the word transforming our health. How does fire transform? At that time, I was having a book written by a Harvard primatologist called Richard Wrangham. He argued, unlike the paleo diet people, that the biggest revolution in the human diet came not when they started to eat meat, but when we learned to cook. Now, this is a very interesting hypothesis. Actually, what he says is that cooking is as old as something like 2 million years old. It's not very recent. Our ancestors, Homo erectus and others, learned the secret of fire. And before that also, pounding and heating the food ingredients actually pre-digested them, so that our guts had to spend less energy to break it down, and more calories were available for our guts to divert to building smarter, bigger brains. Now, this was his basic hypothesis. And the book is very interesting. It says, Catching Fire, How Cooking Made Us Human. So the control of fire, according to experts like Wrangham, was the critical element that was responsible for morphing of hominids into humans. This, more than any other development such as meat eating, seems to have been the crucial thing that defines us. Now, there are people who are vegetarians who will celebrate this. And there are people who are non-vegetarians who will say, hey, but how are we able to eat meat? Now, people like Wrangham and others say that, the design of the teeth that we have indicates that we are not true carnivores. We are not carnivores, or as the next slide says here, we began as cooks, not as carnivores. So this cornucopia that you see is the result of our great ancient love affair with fire. Now, the flip side of that hypothesis is that we are victims of our own success. We have gotten so good at processing food that for the first time in our evolutionary history, many of us are getting more calories than we are able to burn in a day. This, in effect, is the problem that we are all gathered today to explore. It's not that we don't get enough calories. It is that we are getting too many calories, and not of the right sorts. So, is there something we can do to make sure that we are eating right? So, one of the very casual prescriptions that Rangam gives is rough breads have given way to Twinkies, and apples have been replaced by processed packaged apple juice. We need to become more aware of the calorie-raising consequences of a highly processed diet. This then is the problem. I discovered this firsthand when I went to the US, and I was a spoilt brat in India because I just had to hold my hand, and food, would be, if I said one finger, then tea, two fingers, maybe lassi or something, or held out my hand, a plate full of food came, and everything was wonderful. Till I went and I had to live by myself. I had to cook to save my life, because I thought all problems of cooking ended by going and eating what is called as student mixture. Have you heard of this? Camp mixture, student mixture, trail mixture. This was supposed to be the ideal stuff. And on a more serious and a terrible note, this is the sort of mixture that terrorists carried to Taj. When you had resins, badams, and dates, all of these are concentrated food that you need when you are under siege. And this is the kind of food that I used to eat while working 18 hours a day chasing stories in America and competing with the Goras. So I thought my food needs were met. I was getting enough calories, I was getting nuts, walnuts and dried cherries and coconut slices and everything. It was perfect, beautiful. But I started losing a bit of weight, and I started getting feelings of nausea sometimes, and I went to the company doctor. He examined me and all that. I used to work for the Washington Post that time, and they said, what do you eat at home? So I said, you won't believe. I said, it's a soup, lentil gruel, I said, dal. So he says, go back to it. I said, why? He says, do you know that the camp and trail mix that you get is loaded with preservatives called sulfonating agents? These are things added to make the food look fresh and attractive. And your system is completely out of sync with all these, and you are actually bleeding inside. I didn't want to give you the gory details, but that was what had actually made me go to the doctor. He says that unless you stop, you will have to be hospitalized. You look good and fit, but actually you are on the verge of collapse, because your system is reacting to what are called as sulfonating agents, which make the slices of dates and things look plumper than they are, shiny and nice. 6 months later also they will look like that. So he says, give up all that. So then what do I do? How do I save my life? This was actually a proposition in my life 35 years ago. And then, of course, the great branding experts that Americans are, they said, here's an opportunity to show a wonderful story of a guy who nearly died because of our food, saving himself. So what do? You go and get a book published by Simon Schuster called Indian Cooking or something. Julie Sinha, I think, was the great writer. And the food editor of the paper came up with a smock which had the Oregonian logo and the Washington Post logo on it. And then I got Kermit the Frog glasses, because as you cut onion, you don't want to weep with these big goggles, green goggles. A television camera was summoned to record all this. And then I wrote home to Vimla. I says, how does one boil water? how does one handle rice, how does one handle dal, for example. And believe me, I wrote a middle for the Times of India also called Dalliance with Dal. And it is this experience that literally saved my life by eating basic food that we had taken for granted. This lasan tadka, adding little jeera, adding, haldi, another great subject you could get lost in. All these things with the cues that you get by, primordial scents that you picked up as a kid growing up, they were wafting from the kitchen. So you could judge the quality of your cooking also from the quality of the odoriferous inputs that you were getting. So this was the solution. The solution was also not to go to the other extreme of going all raw, because that was also proposed to me. It says, oh, you are falling sick because of processed food. So go anti-process. Go to the other extreme. Eat raw food. Even those options were present. But my food editor, bless her soul, she was a grandmama of 70. People don't retire there. She told me that, even your uncooked food will have to be processed through a blender or a juicer. And if you add fruit and nuts, dried ones, which I was literally scared of then, you are then compensating for this food. You are not really going for raw, untreated green food. So, no society in history has lived on a diet of smoothies, dried fruits and nuts. So human beings who have been playing with fire for amazingly long periods of time, they know all about making food palatable for health. So that is the bottom line I'm going to take in the rest of my lecture, with a little spin on that. Cooking is the part that we need for the grains and the cereals and things, starchy foods. That really, transformation of starches is one of the great principles. But what about local fruit and vegetable? What about the whole grains which can be pounded? This really, coupled with exercise, is the key to good health for transforming ourselves. But the other insight that I want to emphasize while we are on these raw, unprocessed foods is something that G.D. Birla said about Mahatma Gandhi. It took a lot of money to keep Mahatma Gandhi in poverty, quote unquote, in the Sabarmati ashram. So if you think that this lifestyle is cheap, it is not. This back to nature, going and eating plants and herbs, it's expensive. And if you add grains like quinoa, for example, which is grown in South America, it's going to burn a hole in your pocket. So are there alternatives to that? Absolutely. That is the main topic of my conversation today. Going back to basics. That really is the... And when Sucheta and Debu first suggested this talk, let me confess, I thought, let me be the devil's advocate, which we journalists are very good at, And I said, magic of everyday foods, does it not sound like a paradox or a contradiction in terms? My point was, how can everyday stuff be magical? But when you think deeply, you have to acknowledge the miracle. Now here, I'm going to depart from my script, and I'm going to tell you something aside from the script, and that is, this is again a caveat, this is not a Hindutva message, okay? This is not a Hindutva message at all. There is one of the great Mahavakyas of our tradition. Do you know what it is? What a Mahavakya of our tradition is? What the Hindu, great saying of the Hindu tradition. Do you know? Anybody knows it here? It's called Aham Brahmasmi. That is, I am Brahman. Shankaracharya is supposed to have said it. And there is another which says Tattvamasi, you are that. So when the ancient Indians went in search of this Brahman, what do you think they identified? And I am not saying this for this. Actually and truly, when Bhrigu goes to his father Varuna, who is the god of waters, and asks him, what is the secret of Brahman? So his first flat out answer is absolutely counterintuitive. He says, food is Brahman. Annam Brahman. You cannot get more basic than this. And this is not abstract Brahman somewhere. It says what you eat is God itself. I mean, and it is not far to see why he says that. You withhold that, and then you get the other manifestation of Buddha sitting like a skeleton, his hair falling out. When he tried that extreme of eating only 1 grain of rice, and even trying to stop that. Because foolishly they thought that food is your enemy. It is not. It is Brahman itself. If you don't eat, you don't live. It's as basic as that. Even if you take a Western perspective of Abraham Maslow, who talks about hierarchy of needs and a pyramid, the most basic thing is food. First thing is roti. Whether you call it naan, or you call it poli, or you call it paratha, you call it pita bread, or you call it dosai, or whatever. That is the basic. After that comes kapada and makan and all that. And smart politicians like Indira Gandhi and Zulfikar Ali Bhutto were very quick to catch on this, and to understand the significance of this. Yes, of course, yeah. When Amma gives you that ration, you are getting, as Napoleon said, to people's hearts through their bellies, through that kilo of rice which is given. Now, strangely or not so strangely, religions have also caught on to this very well. Food is not treated messily. You don't mess around with food. When you eat, you say grace. When you eat, you do this Chitravali. You say the invocation to your ancestors, or whatever it is. This is the acknowledgement that food is truly magical. So all that this deviation from my script is this, that the subject is non-trivial. The food is indeed magical. What is not magical is the delusion that we have about food. And this is one subject you can get very quickly, beautifully deluded, like Bhrigu's other friends were when he went to his father. Says he went to so many teachers and everybody and his uncle confused him. This is what is going to happen if you go and listen to the diet experts, say in the United States. They'll tell you, you have to have meat, you have to have protein, you have to have dairy food, you have to have this and that, and the end result is what? I'm going to tell you about something that is shocking, There is a guy called Dr. William Castelli, who was heading the world famous Framingham Heart Study, which is one of the most celebrated studies of nutrition and its impact and relationship with cardiac health. You know what he says, and this is an actual quote, I have not made this up. If you want to produce coronary artery disease in monkeys, all you have to do is to feed them an average hospital diet. I swear he says that. Then the interviewer asked him, what if you want to reverse that coronary artery disease in those monkeys? He says, all you have to do is to feed them a simple, as this is, low-fat vegetarian diet. And then he adds a caveat, which is absolutely stunning. The problem with Western medicine is you got to be a monkey to get a proper dietary treatment for heart disease. And did you know that in 40 years of the farmingum, they've never had a heart attack in anyone who had a total cholesterol under 150 mg. Now that is, I got a revisitation of that when the Times of India had invited some world famous cardiac people for the treatment of our chairman from Cleveland Clinic, and I was interacting with them. And there, as usual, as the health editor, I asked them, why don't you prescribe folic acid, which is conventionally known as the 9-cent solution. And, this doctor was candid enough to say, that is fine, but why do you want the 9-cent solution when you have the 1 million in your pocket, too? So eat, drink and be merry and we'll fix you up. 9 cents is for people who don't want to spend that or who don't want to quote unquote enjoy. So the concept of eating, the satiation that you get, that you are genetically pre-wired for fatty food. Why? Because we are not gorillas, we are humans. This is the problem that the raw food back to nature lobbyists make. There's this beautiful book which says, where do gorillas get their protein from? And the point that this lady is making, and a very valid and a beautiful point, is that you don't need that kind of protein from conventional protein. You can still get, you can be a 500-pound gorilla, stronger than King Kong, even if you eat, because there is sufficient protein in that. But the counterintuitive side of that is that you have to spend a long time eating food, and you won't get enough calories from that bulk of the verbiage, the foliage that you're going to process. So calories is a problem. So what is the problem with calories is that human beings want them quickly in a concentrated form. And these unctuous foods, these fatty foods, these fried foods, they give it to you. So you can sort of lard it up, and then you can do so many interesting things that humans are known for. So this is the critical difference between comparing elephants and gorillas and humans. We must also see that our guts are not like those. They are not meant for processing all that raw food. I am not saying that you should not eat raw food. You should take into consideration, there is the other deviation from the script. When Lord Krishna is asked by Arjuna in the Gita, what is the way of being in this world? So he says, Yukta Ahara Viharasya, Yukta Cheshtasya Karmasu. So Yukta Ahara. Now, if you are a soldier, you need a different type of diet. If you are an administrator sitting on your backside and doing all the accounts day long, you need another kind of diet. If you are a king who has ostensibly a harem, then you need a different lifestyle and So what I am trying to say is that Yukta Ahara Viharasya is depending on your life needs, your profile. So having said that, I am going to get into the basics. Let's see what we have here. Sorry. Now here's the one full plate. I hope it's visible. We have half of it devoted to vegetables, half of it to grains and carbs, half to protein. So this is the basic arrangement that we talk about. Let's look at the carbs. I'm going to start with rice because rice is one of the staples that sustains billions of people on this planet. But it has also been demonized greatly. It has been demonized as a source of excess carbs and low protein. Both are fallacies actually. If you really look at rice eating people, and Debu will bear me out, in rural Bengal, or you go to Tamil Nadu, you look at the people working in the fields, you won't find a fat human being there. They are lean. They may eat so much rice, but they are not going to be overweight or obese, So how does that happen? As long as you eat enough unrefined starches and vegetables, you get sufficient amount of calories and you don't have to worry about lack of protein. This is something that we have to guard ourselves against. Don't worry about protein too much. Taking Dumex, those Protein X things, and taking Prathin tablets or whatever. That is required when you have a medical condition, or you have a special need. That's a different topic. And this is enshrined in a very beautiful quote by the great nutritionist Sir William Madoc Bayliss, who said, "Take care of the calories and the protein will take care of itself." So this is another principle that I am talking about with rice. Now, if you are to use rice and polished basmati, instead of going for the unpolished red or black rice, which you are familiar with, I think it is one of the strains is called Patni. By the way, there are more than 800 varieties of rice that you can, and the Lord Jagannath has given every day one new variety. There are varieties that give you the aroma of mango blossoms, ambe mohar. There are those that give you the aroma of jasmine also. And I was recently in Chhattisgarh. The kind of foods, there is Vishnu Bhog, which is absolutely divine, and it is specially taken for presentation to Sri Jagannath at Puri. Now, the Puri Jagannath Mahaprasad makes sure that the Lord gets all the diversity. And what is good for the Lord is obviously good for us. Now, there is another practice that you can use. Now, this is the bit that we are talking about. How do you revolutionize ordinary food? Take rice made previous day, add water to it, store it in an earthenware pot, keep it overnight. That's all you need to do. This is one of the greatest innovations of Indian culture, which we have lost because of the advent of refrigerators. This is called Pani Bhat. Debu also told me it is also in Bengal. It is called old rice in Tamil. In Telugu it is called cold rice. There are words for it, there are actual words, and this was the way rice was consumed in most of India. It wasn't consumed hot off the fire generally. You could not keep, where do you keep the rice that is left over? Put it in water. And next morning, and this I discovered in one of the most beautiful books in Marathi called Leela Charitra. It is a biography of Sri Chakradhar Swami, who was the founder of the Mahanubhav sect. And there are hundreds of examples cited where he says Pani Bhat Ase is there to offer somebody. Do you have Pani Bhat? He says yes. So what is Pani Bhat? It's nothing but rice soaked in water overnight and offered. Now what is this business of storing overnight in water do to that rice? First of all, it hikes up the iron, potassium, calcium content by several percentage points. You get a burst of B6 and B12 vitamins and a bonus of nutritionally rich gut-friendly bacteria. All this you get by just simple conversion of rice which is sitting in your fridge. You just put it in a pot of water. Next morning, you just decant the water first, you drink it first, eat the rice for breakfast. You can have it with a slice of Amla, or maybe a little lime, or you can have it with buttermilk, which is. You cannot get a more healthful diet than this. You cannot get a more healthful diet if you take lime pickle, if you take amla, which is the superfood, which I'm going to talk about later. If you take buttermilk again, buttermilk also. Look at what you're doing to your insides with this. Gut-friendly bacteria, it's a whole big subject. I don't want to get into it right now. Now, I'm going to talk about another innovation of rice which is absolutely brilliant for India.
At the computer.
Yeah. At the computer?
Yeah.
Okay. Lovely. So, Varan Bhat. Now, this was the one that got me stuck into 7 slides. You know why?
Yeah, there was Palak.
Yes, I began with Popeye the Sailor, if you imagine. Now there is no Popeye at all. These people frightened me so much, He says, we'll have to serve them dinner, we'll have to get sleeping bags and all that. Plus they will file a suit against you for, torture. So I said, nay, we'll... Now, do you guys like Varan Bhat at all? Do you like it? You like it? Okay. Now, this, I have to make a confession. I used to think this was sissy food, Isme dam nahi hai. I used to think that you must eat, like the miyas, eat mutton, biryani, and you get all those, your voice becomes resonant like Lata Fateh Khan or something like that. And this is for Bamanwa, Bamanwa as they say. ये आपके लिए है ऐसा. They don't realize this is the grandma of all great stuff. If you eat Varan Bhat, you can take on all these people and chop them down.
With some soup.
Yes, exactly.
Come to that.
You see, Varan Bhat is again mentioned in Leela Charitra. Varana Bhat, as they call it. And it is the simplicity itself, how you make it. And what are they doing? They are adding the proteins of the lentils and the innate carbs. You're getting a happy marriage of stuff that is the easiest thing. And do you know, this is something that was noticed by Alexander the Great. He says, how did these ordinary people get the strength and ferocity to withstand us when they came? We came at them like wolves. These people did not budge an inch. So he wanted to find out what sustained these people. He had brought historians, incidentally, and his annals are available. Says, then what he did, he had people like Aristotle, who said, उधर से कोई philosopher or journalist रहेगा ना, उसको पकड़ के लेके आओ. So they went and found these yogis and anchorites who are doing meditation. हम लोग नहीं आते हैं, क्यों? We are happy where we are. You might find a journalist like Debu and all that. उसको लेके जाओ. तो बोट में डाल के लाते हैं. बोट में डालते हैं तो बोलते नहीं, तुम्हारा खाना नहीं खाएंगे हम लोग. भ्रष्ट हो जाएंगे, तो हमारे ही खाना लेके आएंगे. क्या खाना लेके जाएंगे आप? They were taking lentils and what we call in Marathi shidha. You're carrying your little pouch, sling bag with different pockets.
Kappe.
Yes, kappe as it is called. And it will, thank you for that lovely word. Kappe, is also frog in Karnataka. And there is, in Sringeri, there is a shrine to kappe. So I don't want to get into that now. Because... So,
Bags and all.
yeah. So they used to cook this pottage of lentils and rice, and they were perfectly all right. Of course, they might add dried ginger. And see, we've had a wonderful tradition of Ayurveda, which talks about different doshas, the different amshas, the different gunas and rasas, which are necessary in food. And from that perspective, they had life-enhancing things. Like only now we are understanding why haldi was so important. It's only now we realize what is curcumin really. Yeah. Haldi is the thing that prevents Alzheimer's. This is what I am a skeptic. I don't want to listen to it unless it is proved and it is with double-blind trials and all that. And this is something that people have been seeing, that this prevents degenerative diseases. Just a little bit of that. How can one little thimble transform the food into a superfood? This is the secret of Varan Bhat. And Varna is color. So if you take the Kannada equivalent of this sambar or whatever, you will call it huli. Am I right? Huli. Huli is also the word for tiger, because it is tiger colored. It makes it huli anna. What is it? It makes it the tiger of a food. So I didn't want to say that you got to chop people and all that. I meant that you can sustain a very strong lifestyle with this apparently simple food. Even in Malaysia, if you go where Indian culture has traveled, sambal you will get, not sambar, sambare as you will get. So why is it? Because of this characteristic color imparted to lentils by addition of these dals and turmeric. And this is the essence of what Shobha De called. She said, I am as Maharashtrian as Varan Bhat, she said. And you go to CNN, they'll tell you that this is one of the top foods in the list of 40, which Mumbai cannot do without. Because you know what is good, because your body is telling you that. Sometimes you may be persuaded otherwise by clever campaigning. So this is what we need to be a little aware about. This is not, it may not look like sexy food, but believe me, it is. And the other thing that leads me from Varan Bhat to something very recent that happened was the nomination of khichdi as the national food. You've heard about it. Now khichdi is a pejorative usually for a cabinet which is made of diversities and where nothing great gets done. So a khichdi cabinet, kitchen cabinet, But actually khichdi is one of the great one single casserole innovations that a struggling journalist in the United States used to save his life. So how did I make that discovery? Because it says that you just take in one casserole, you can add meat if you want. Because I must confess, you can add fish, you can add vegetables, you can add palak, you can add paneer or whatever, and you will get a complete pottage, one pie or whatever without the blackbirds in it. What I am saying is that khichdi is again down market in one way. And it's not as though it is hyped up, but it is depending on the kind of grains you use in it, you can make it very, very, very quote unquote sexy. You can use sprouts, you can use whole grains, you can use barley, you can use till, you can garnish it with. All these things will add to the nutritional value of your food. So please, this is the second great innovation. Don't frown on khichdi. This is something that we practice today. In fact, while going home, at home at dinner, we would be having khichdi with curry. It's something that is a staple, that's a given. Khichdi again is considered a sick man's food sometimes. It is, and that is revealing again. It is good for somebody who is recovering. So you can imagine it has to be a superfood. Why do you have a bestseller which says chicken soup for the soul if it was not good for you? So khichdi is a comfort food, but don't frown on it. Use it imaginatively, and you get many variations of it. Like there is a thing, laska. Have you heard of this? There's a dish called laska from Malaysia. It's a soup in which you can bung in all kinds of things, including dried shrimp and all that. And you can make a fiery or a mild or yellow or red or not blue, of course, because I don't think they put blueberries in that or jamuns. But the point I'm making is that these are foods that will not consume your time and they look after you. This is the point that I'm making for a busy society, for a busy lifestyle. You are not a professional foodie, in the sense you don't want to be caught up on your food range, for Christ's sake. There's an interesting play out there. There's a dharna to be did, there's a million to be made or whatever. I mean, why do you want to be stuck with pots and pans, you know? So this is something that helps us take care of that. Now, having said that, I'm not going to be stuck on rice again. This is again very interesting. In the Leela Charitra, Chakradhar Swami talks about the ideal qualities of dahi rice, dadi bhatu as he calls it. So he says it has to be white. Now there is a preoccupation in our culture with white, with sattva, sattvic, with fairness. How was Chakradhar Swami described? Sampe Gaur Shri Murti. He was like, he had the complexion of a champa, you know. So, Sampe Gaur Shri Murti, Lambakarna Vishal Netra, as he is called, you know. And he Dave Bhuai Vari Kondi. He had a little scar on his left eyebrow. And he was physical perfection. So, he says that dahi bhat mein ekdam perfect white hona chahiye. So much that if you give a ball, you keep a ball of dahi rice and a ball of lime, a dog should not be able to distinguish between the two. Now, that's fine. Dahi bhat, again I'm going to come a little later on to it. But my submission is to go for darker grains. Darker grains, because that's how real India really eats. Food that is darker, food that is like ragi, for example. Sudhir is now wondering, when am I going to talk about his favorite food? Ragi mudde. There is, you know. But there are people who will tell you that ragi mudde is boring because it's just a little, you know, ball of flour which is cooked in steamed or whatever, and then yes, with fiery pundi soppu chutney they will give it and all that. So what can you do? One of the great things about ragi is that it takes the flavors also. You can do umpteen number of things with it. You can make semiyas, you can make biscuits, you can make dosas, you can make sprouts, you can use it as khichdi or whatever you do. You are better off welcoming more colors on your palate. Now this is the other principle of transformation. Welcome diversity and vibgyor on your food. That means eat red, orange, green, purple, blue, whereas fruits and, you know, vegetables and things, and grains like ragi, for example, or jawar, or bajra, quinoa, amaranth. You know, there is such a diversity you can. Now, as a catchy phrase, I was telling Debashish when I was sitting with him, I thought of this phrase that Bankim Chandra Chatterjee uses in his great Vande Mataram. He says, Sasya Shyamala Mataram. So it is Shyamala, Sasya. Earlier we had Kalidasa who says, Mata Marakat Shyama, emerald green. So the emerald green richness of, so that is the food sustaining power that I would like to invoke as one more principle, that you get into the redness of ragi, the greenish brownness of the coarse grains, and this is what is going to brighten up and transform your nutritional life. So ragi deserves to be at the top of the food grain pyramid that we talk about. Rich source of good carbohydrates. Seeds are too tiny to be polished or processed, which is a good thing. So the wonder grain is mostly consumed in its purest form. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Yeah, super millets, is it there? Oh, sorry, I've gone ahead of. And what are the other advantages for ragi? Can we just? There is one. Let's see our. I have. Let me just go back. Ragi Raga. Okay, that's the one. Okay, it's gluten free, high in essential amino acids like lysine and methionine, and high fiber, high calcium. Ditto for mineral rich. Here. The other millets. Okay. So but it's also one caveat here is that get friendly with these millets gradually if you're not used to them. Mix the flours. You can mix it with wheat first, with vary the forms, have them as porridge, sevia, upma, become friendly with them, because there are sometimes issues of acceptance also. If you're used to a particular flavor, you may not, so it's better to sort of sample them and make friends with them gradually. But believe me, they will transform your life. They will transform your life, there is no doubt about it. This jawar is not new at all. It has been cultivated for nearly 9 or 10,000 years, Of course, it began in Africa. And, it has as much, 86% as much protein as quinoa. And it is exponentially cheaper because it is grown not in South America, but here, near Karad or Satara or even here, in Solapur or wherever, It is also an eco-friendly crop because it is drought resistant. It uses 3 times less water than an acre of corn. So, but the recent rise, what do you explain it as? It's because we want natural substitutes for the food that we are seeking, natural substitutes. One serving of sorghum contains 47% of our daily recommended iron and 55% of our phosphorus, I'm saying prosperous, pun intended. Besides also providing magnesium, copper, calcium, zinc, potassium, etc. It's also rich in niacin, thiamine, vitamin B complex. This is jawar, yeah. And it helps in proper metabolization of the carbohydrates. Because what it does, it is also very rich in antioxidants, which you find in more expensive blueberries and pomegranates. You can get it right in this one grain, and that is why they are dark. And because they are dark, now there is, when I used to edit Science Today, we had a wonderful report by the Director General of one of those great nutritional foundations, Dr. Gopalan. He said one of the paradoxes was, as you prospered, you started eating like the people above you. That means refined food. That means you want to have mutton and not once in 1 month or whatever. You want it almost alternate day, or you want to have more white, refined sugars, starches, cakes, pastries, all that. And the paradox later is that as you start prospering and you start using your nutritional wisdom and you have to go to the doctor because you're getting lots of problems, then the doctor says, eat like a poor man. Eat like your servant. I mean, I don't mean it in a classist sort of manner.
The doctor knows.
Yeah.
A good doctor.
Yeah. He will tell you that eat coarse stuff. In fact, economists classify these grains as coarse. There is no greater left-handed compliment. Coarse is actually the USP. This is something that we should celebrate. Instead, we used it as a sobriquet, as a pejorative to put these things down. This is, hey, servants' food, you know. This is meant for fodder in America, actually. You know, red millet is used as cattle fodder mostly and as a source for molasses. It's only now that they realize that what you are feeding your cows, you should have been eating instead of eating those cows. You know, that is really so. So, now what am I saying is that sorghum has also got tannins which slow down the absorption in the body so that it regulates your blood insulin and sugar levels. That is how a farmer is able to work whole day long with just one. And what do they eat? They eat these rotis. They break the onion with their fist, you know. They'll have a thetsa, they'll have til ka chutney, and they will have zhunka, or you know, they will have pitla or something like that, which from chickpeas. And all day long they are able to do back-breaking work. This is because these are superfoods, really superfoods. And this is something that I would like to keep as one of the focal points of my presentation. Let us not look down on foods, and let's look at them with fresh eyes. Now the second thing, I've already told you about lentils. Now I'm going to be talking about obsession about meat on the plate. I think we have it here. Yep. Sorry. This I've already talked about. Now here, lean cuts. This Mac cannot connect. Oh wow. Lentils, lean cuts, okay. Now, if you ask me, you don't need meat at all. If you ask me, not because they know what a carnivore I am. I've eaten practically everything on this planet except 3 things. Ask me what those 3 things are.
No. Go ahead.
One is the aeroplane in the air, the submarine in the water, and man on land. I'm not so sure about woman, but you know, these are the 3 things that I have not eaten. Now, jokes apart, you know, one of the things that we've been persuaded that protein is, I've already dealt with that point. If you need protein, if you need that you have to have Samish ahar versus Niramish, Bengali terms. Now, interestingly, Samish means with meat. Niramish means without meat. Now, it is interesting that the absence of meat is felt. Unlike the English translation, the absence of vegetarianism is felt. Non-vegetarian. Here you say Samish, that which has meat, that is non-vegetarian. So this is because we have got this conditional thing that to be strong, to be well built with muscles, you need meat. I would say that is something that you can afford to challenge. And there is a whole lot of literature which says that a number of conditions are promoted by excess of meat in our body. I'm saying this advisedly because lifetime of carnivory around the planet, 110 countries I have lived in. But it is good to give up all these things and go back to a plant-based diet. So, how do you make this food interesting for yourself? If you're not going to have meat, are you going to keel over and die? Not at all. Not at all. You see, the Ambanis are there. I mean, they are presumably they don't eat meat, but look at the amount of money they are making.
No connection.
So, what I mean is, incidentally, yours truly and my powerful wife had been invited to dinner with Dhirubhai Ambani, and they had options like Mexican food and this and different types of things, and also exotic stuff like passion flower salads and things like that. Wonderful food was available. This was when a Japanese Nobel laureate had come, and a presentation was being made to Mukesh's alma mater. And we were among the 19 couples. The food was exquisite. So for the record, that was just a joke, okay? So what I am trying to say is that a purely plant-based diet can provide you all the vitamins that you need, except vitamin D, which you can make for yourself if you go out in the sun. And of course, vitamin B12, which comes from bacteria. And vitamin D is actually considered to be a hormone, more than a, vitamin per se. And there are eggs for those people to get an easy source. That we'll talk little later. But what about sprouts, which have incredible nutritional density? Every plant-based food starts as a sprout. This is what I am talking about, the magic of sprouts. That's the other message I want to give you. This is live food, actually. You cannot get livelier than this. This is growing in front of you like that beanstalk of the fairy tale, Jack's magic. So every plant-based food starts as a sprout, and 3 key changes occur in sprouting. Nutrition is heightened, anti-nutrition is removed. That means you have to unlock compounds for use by the plant so that it can build roots, put out leaves and things like that. All this is in the seed. So this is the miracle, this is the magic of food that you are actually consuming, allowing it to become part of you. So I'll give you a few specific examples, like sulforaphane created during germination of seeds like broccoli, or there's a neurotransmitter called GABA, which you get in brown rice. Fava beans giving you the precursor to dopamine, which is L-dopa. So any number of vitamins and minerals are available in sprouts. This is one way you can get variety again. You don't have to depend on only one type of sprout. Not just one matki or just one moong or just chana, or you can have black chana, you can have kala chana, for example, is wonderful. You can have chickpeas, you can have alfalfa, whatever. There are so many different type of things which you can use as sprouts. And more importantly, you can also use the next magic that I'm going to talk about is microgreens. The difference is, of course, of time. From sprouts to microgreens, you have these methi microgreens, for example. Now, huge amount of live enzymes you get from them. 100 times more enzymes in these sprouts will be found in the microgreens, because they are required for the explosive growth that is happening right in front of you. And why should we care about these enzymes? Because they are magical catalysts for all your body's functions, including digestion. So please use sprouts judiciously, of course. They have to be clean. They have to be, you should not have attendant sort of infection loads or anything like that, because sometimes there's another point of the script I wanted to warn you about, is that all that is green is not necessarily good for you. One of the most alarming things that I have seen, and I'm putting my money where my mouth is in this, is to see the railway tracks being used for growing of these vegetables, and poor lovely housewives and mothers and sisters go and buy them thinking, "Hey, acha hai, taja bhaji hai." It is loaded with bad things like arsenic and heavy metals and all that. All the industrial pollutants that come along are there on those tracks, and BARC has done studies on those, and they are not good for, they are unfit for human consumption. You should not have these things. So that brings us to the more expensive proposition of real good organic food is expensive. If you want to eliminate that expense of growing in a hothouse or in good conditions, you cannot get a free lunch. Or you have to grow it on your own terrace or something like that. You can do that. And you are enterprising people, you are creative people, you are dynamic people. You can do this in your own little pot and make your own sprouts rather than depend on food which you are not sure about. And by that you will get all kinds of nematodes or whatever these are. I don't want to elaborate on this, because now the next thing that I'm going to talk about is also another beautiful miracle of a tree called Moringa. You know about Moringa, right? Drumstick. Now drumstick is the new kid on the superfood block. Gram for gram, Moringa has more protein than yogurt, more potassium than bananas, more calcium than milk, more vitamin C than oranges, and all that. But remember the catch line, gram for gram. If you have to get the same quantity, you will have to eat a truckload of Moringa leaves, which I would not advise you.
The leaves or the drumsticks itself?
Leaves are also beneficial. The drumsticks are also beneficial. Even the roots are being consumed. And flowers, of course. You can make wonderful bhajiyas and you can make curries. Flowers, absolutely delicious, scrumptious. Now talking about eating flowers. There is a tree called kachnar. Have you heard of this? Kachnar, north में कोई सुना है? जो elephant, camel's foot it is called. You give that as sona during Dasera. That sort. That kachnar it produces beautiful flowers which are absolutely delicious. And you can find the recipe and the entry in something as august as Oxford Companion to Food. So, sorry? Apta is very tough. This is kachnar, kanchan. Yeah. This is, apta is actually made for bidi leaf. So yes, kanchan. That is Bohemia racemosa or Bohemia variegata or Bohemia purpurea. These are the three species. Because there are a number of species in Bohemia, including climbers and but if you go for kanchan, Rakta Kanchan as it is called, you are safe. Now, there are of course cautions to be followed whenever you are using herbal stuff, because some of them are also active. They have, like for example, Reserpine people used to use, Sarpagandha, it's a drug. Now, foxgloves if you use, these are, they have alkaloids, they have effects. Like if you eat, for example, carambola. Have you heard of star fruit? Yeah. Now, carambola can produce lot of problems for people who have oxalic acid things. It can even produce a kind of toxic shock. But this is the food that is given to kids, in the sense it is sold outside schools with bora and and carambola, imli with salt. But it is also a food that you need to be cautious about. We grow that, but we never harvest it. We have two big trees in our garden, and they're just producing stuff, and even the birds don't seem to want them. I don't know. They're pretty picky, I mean, I thought we are the only people, but we can learn a thing from the birds, not to forget the bees. Now, we have talked about Moringa. We are going to talk about bananas. Now, eggs, yeah, I'll come, since we are talking about fruits and vegetables and things. This is the other point that I want to emphasize. This is another food item that is sometimes that is sometimes downgraded. Poor man's food, or not sexy enough, or whatever. I don't know where people get these ideas that, bananas, poor man's food, or ubiquitous and all that. What we have to remember is that these bananas is the world's most consumed fruit on the planet. And what is more revealing is that less than 20% of the produce gets exported anywhere. Such is the local demand, because people know a good thing. They know that it is a superfood. And if you have been told some crap about, how it increases your sugar or calories and all that, is absolute nonsense. This is one food that should be included in your food. And when we used to eat, when I used to work at the Times of India and Boribandar, we used to call Times of India the old lady of Boribandar. Whenever we used to eat in these shetty places or lunch or whatever, invariably we found a thela selling bananas, where they would have a gourd, or a hand full of these fingers, bananas, which would come from Mangalore or Kasargod or wherever. And there were different types of bananas that were on sale, Safed Elchi, and not just those big green bananas which come for commercial reasons, they are grown, but even red bananas used to be available. Now, why are they on this super food? Now, here's something which I want to leave you with, which probably is not as well known, is that it's not the apple, but the banana, many people feel, that was the food that made Adam and Eve smart. And it made them smart in many ways, enough to leave God and say, hey, we want our own life here. We're too tired staying with you. That is why it is called Musa sapientum. Food, the banana which has made you smart. Musa paradisiaca, that is the name. And it is because you have stuff like tryptophan in it, which gets converted into serotonin inside the body, which is the happiness chemical. So, mood improvers, ideal for people who work out and things, because it has low glycemic index, which counts for impact on blood sugars. A medium-sized banana has 3 grams of fiber, soluble fiber is a great thing. 350 mg of potassium and barely 105 calories. So this is the superfood that you can easily include in your food if you don't have other issues with health issues. Now another Amla. This is another superfruit that you can include in your food. Why? There is a virtually the whole world you can choose, but why Amla? Amla, is one of the things that's an obsession with our culture. Do you know why we are obsessive about amlas? Have you heard about Chyawanprash? This is the main ingredient of Chyawanprash. And Chawanprash is the stuff that made a doddering geriatric Chavan Rishi into a very young stud, if I may call it. Actually, it was actually, this is the story, that the secret of Chawanprash was revealed by the gods of healing called Ashwin Kumars to Chavan's wife, who was serving this old man with all due devotion. The story is very interesting. This girl called Sukanya, who is a king's daughter, goes for water sporting near a river, and there she finds this.
Water sporting.
Yeah. Absolutely, the Gandharvas, used to. And there she finds anthills, which has these holes in which there are bright lights inside. A stupid kid, she just picks up a little thing and pricks them, and there's a yelp. Blood starts coming out of that anthill. Oh, they get scared, and the servants break it, and they find that there's a whole man seated inside. And he is this geriatric Rishi Chavana, who's become blind now because of this. So the king is called, and king of course is damn scared because this guy is a big Rishi and he can curse you to smithereens or whatever. So he says, what do you do? So he says, what do I do? He says, now I'm an old man. I can't take care of myself being blind. So he says, okay, give me your daughter. And the poor thing, she's married off to this geriatric fellow. And you would try to make a sexist sort of cast on it and say, look at how exploitation of women, etc. But the story is not like that. This guy was actually testing them out. And he makes all kinds of demands and this. She just does not budge from her devotion. Whatever he says, whatever he commands, she serves him with such devotion and care because she is genuinely contrite about what she has done. So he says, oh, you must be sad. No, he says that you've been to look after such an old man. And would you like a young husband? So she says, don't talk about it because she says there's no. She says, but suppose if it was possible. So she says, how is it possible? So then he says that you do this, and the gods will come. And he summons the gods. Now the gods are pretty slimy, They find this beautiful girl and say, hey, with this old man, come on, come out for a drink, happy hours. And,
Happy hours.
Yeah. So they say that why one, we'll make him young. Don't worry, we'll make him young. But you have to choose now. We'll give you a choice. And you're a queer, you're a royal girl. So they make copies of themselves and Chavan Rishi, young, whatever, Ritik Roshans or whatever. They all stand in a line. And he says, okay, now choose. So she goes and zeroes in on her husband and catches his arm. Says, how did you do that? She says, all of you are floating because you already come from happy hours, This guy is grounded. And to cut a long story short, there's a deal involved. The healing gods were frowned upon in our tradition. They do not get soma in the yajna. So Sukanya argues their case like Sucheta would do. She fights for their cause. She says, this is unfair. They are healing us. They are doing a great job, and they should be given on par, respect. And Ashwins get their share of soma from that moment. Although Indra objects initially, saying, hey, we don't want to divide the lolly, we just don't want, we don't want these guys. And they're twins after all, So you got to give two portions. But she says nothing doing. And in return, she gets this elixir of life called Chavanprash. That is the story. Chavana is the name of the rishi, and more than 46% of Chavanaprash is Amla jam. Now, Amla is also found in Triphala Churna, 1/3 of it. That is also equally, and Amla is used in what is called as Rasayana therapy. India has this terrific preoccupation with regeneration, which is the catchline of our talk, transformation. How do you transform yourself? So there is a thing called Kuti Pravesha. There's a whole Pandit Madan Mohan Malviya went through it and all that. So whatever you can do, you can take Amla in various forms, but what is the USP of Amlas? The USP of Amlas is that it is one of the most concentrated sources of vitamin C. And it has, it's unbelievable, the kind of, but also with vitamin C, I mean, there are a whole lot of benefits. You should be careful not to denature it with too much heating. It immediately degrades. So try to have it as fresh as possible. And antioxidant potency of Amla is supposed to be 55 times higher than blueberries. Now look at that. Blueberries, you are going and paying through your nose, for them, but you are going to sniff down on that poor Amla which is languishing there. So go for it. But again, find out what is your requirement, And then of course, you can take it as a Amla juice, you can take it as a additive, you can.
But Amla in Chyawanprash is not cooked.
It is cooked. But that is not consumed for the vitamin C as much as other ingredients. And I was told that they even add gold in it. The other preoccupation of Indian tradition using mercury again. But not the mercury that causes this Minamoto disease and all that. So that's another thing that we must talk about. Now, I'm not going to be taking too much time. You know about these fellows, the tomatoes, which initially you had to pay people to eat. You know about that. They came from South America. The Portuguese, we have of course many things to curse them for, but many things more to thank them for. Potatoes, for example, they're not Indian, but say that to Lalu and he'll fly at you. Jab tak aloo mein hai samosa or whatever. Or Lalu mein hai whatever. So the more tomatoes you eat, the better. And here is one more counterintuitive tip as part of my contract this evening, is cooking them with some heart healthy oil such as olive oil. But there are people who will tell you olive oil is a scam. So again, it makes it easier for the body to absorb your one medium-sized tomato will give you 50% of your daily recommended dose of vitamin C, and it has a fabulous antioxidant called lycopene. This one molecule of lycopene can neutralize 13 free radicals which, if allowed to build up, cause cellular damage or even cancer. So that's twice as effective as beta carotene, which is found in the other superfood, which is carrots. And of course, as I said, absorption of lycopene goes up 3 times when consumed as a sauce or a paste rather than in the raw state. That's been told. But as I was telling Debu the other day, I would like to check the source of this, because there are certain industry sponsored things, so we should take, the internet is a great source, but you have to be extremely careful. Don't blindly follow, and that orangutan, whoever, fake news did not originate only with him. Fake news has been coming to us from Baba Adam's time. And this is one of the things that you got to be careful about. Who is paying for the research? What is it that they are trying to push? And if you see, much of the research, coffee research, meat research, dairy research is absolutely slanted. It is slanted to make you disempowered so that you don't go for stuff that your grandmothers gave you. So please don't buy this processing, packaging, the whole MNC thing that we add on to it actually is aimed at fleecing our dollars. Okay, now I'm almost to the end. Beets to beat ill health, and I'm also talking about spinach, beets, things. These are things that are ordinary, but they are superfoods, absolutely, no doubt about it. Except again cautions, like if you have oxalate kind of kidney stone problems, you've got to be a little careful handling beets. Yeah, and also spinach. Spinach also has oxalates, which you can treat with lime, or you can steam them a bit, and then there are a number of benefits to be had from spinach. Now, spinach there is per calorie to calorie, spinach has more protein than ground beef. This is why I was going to start Popeye the Sailor business. The USDA nutrient database will tell you this. Every 100 calories contains 12.5 grams of protein. But eating 100 calories of spinach is a very long, tall order. So you don't want to do that. You don't want to be a gorilla chained to your, spinach trough or whatever it is. So what many people do is combine it with paneer, and not a good idea. Why? Because the iron from the palak and the calcium from the paneer, both essential nutrients, together is counterproductive, because calcium can inhibit the absorption of iron. So what should you do instead? Take it with ascorbic acid, which is with limbu. So if you do that, again eating a bowl full of pure is also not required. You just combine it with vitamin C and you will get all the goodies of spinach directly without getting all that, inhibition of calcium or iron and all that. Okay. I was not suggesting that you become a cannibal. I don't want you to eat Charlie Brown or Snoopy or whatever. And I'm also not going to talk about peanuts, because it's a story that is fairly well known. And to a smart audience such as yours, as you all are, I do not wish to sort of tell you something which is known from the times of President Carter and Zia-ul-Haq, and the value of peanuts and all that. Mahatma Gandhi is supposed to have gotten the story of peanuts from this renowned American scientist called George Washington Carver. Carver's research on peanuts, sweet potatoes and other products helped poor farmers to vary their crops and improve their diets dramatically. Variation, diversity, this is the key. Monoculture of any kind, monotheism in that sense, or herd thinking of a type is generally not good. And the same holds in nutrition. Now, interestingly, along with peanuts, Carver also felt that weeds, which he called nature's vegetables, were a nutritious and an undeveloped food source for America. Imagine he was doing this in the days of Mahatma Gandhi. Carver once noted, there is no need for America to go hungry as long as nature provides weeds and wild vegetables. Now, here's something I would like to leave you with. Can you imagine a more capitalistic icon than Henry Ford? He's said to have shared this appreciation of wild greens with Carver, who was his pal. and he would happily eat sandwiches made by his friend, which contain ingredients such as wild onions, peppergrass, chickweed, wild lettuce, and, hold your breath, rabbit tobacco. Now, what those are named that way because rabbits munched on those. Of course, there are stories told about the taste of these. They are not likely to be the best of them, so they may be they were slathered with mayonnaise or with coleslaw or whatever, Now, I have lots and lots of stuff which I can go on with. I don't want to trouble you guys with that, and I just want to thank you.
And answer questions.
Yes, of course. Of course. Oh, eggs. Yes, of course.
We'll move back. They look really attractive.
Dahi also I didn't speak about. Eggs. Now, where are eggs in this? So, actually, eggs are the other food which have been unfairly demonized in one sense. They have been unfairly demonized in the sense, this preoccupation with cholesterol, because it has got cholesterol. Now, for your information, it's been taken off the list. That's how the nutritional wisdom is being revised. So, it's actually one of the healthiest foods on the planet, yet unfairly demonized. An egg has all the nutrients and building blocks required to grow a full baby chicken. I'm not suggesting that you eat a baby chicken just like that, but it's just to make that point. Loaded with high quality proteins, vitamins, minerals, good fats, trace nutrients, and here's the payoff. Contains only 77 calories, 5 grams of fat, 6 grams of protein, with all 9 essential amino acids. Rich in iron, phosphorus, selenium, vitamins A, B12, B2, B5, among a whole list of them. And don't forget the kaolin, which is vital for making you into a egghead. You can still have a full head of hair, ostensibly, but this is a little bit of a dicey issue in the sense some people have religious issues taking up eggs. Can that be avoided? Absolutely. You don't have to eat eggs to have a perfect diet. That's the point I'm making. But for convenience, and not because somebody has tried to warn you against, it's better to know the baseline. Do you need this? Can you afford to have it? Certainly you can. And it is one of the... See, the Eggs Foundation of India has been trying to persuade. Vijay Raghav and his team made a beautiful documentary on this. You show a complete thali. You want to make it really powerful, just add an egg on it. Just add a banana on it. Just add a little bowl of dahi on it. So if you do that, the combinatorial punch of that meal rises exponentially. Now, there is something that I have another hobby horse to ride on, and that is exercise. All this is good only when you back it up with an active, engaged lifestyle. So exercise is vital. Exercise is absolutely necessary. And there again, we need to fight the Western norms that are, but even the West is now moving away from chairs to standing desks, because they say it is as bad as smoking, sitting down and working for long hours.
Vithal, I'll take some questions.